What's going on, everybody? This is David coming at you today. Gonna be pretty, not organized video by any means. All I'm gonna do today is kind of go over the NFL 2023 wildcard predictions. So we're gonna go over the 6 games you got going on. Nothing crazy. These are just gonna be personal opinions, of course. I'm gonna have some, I watch the football season pretty heavy. I don't go numbers heavy. I don't do any of that. I just get straight to the point. Not crazy big on stats. You can throw for whatever you want to throw for, but at the end of the day, the win is what's going to matter. The team is what's going to matter. So we're going to go game by game from the early Saturday game all the way to the Monday night game with the Dallas Cowboys. So starting off, we got the Seahawks and 49ers. Honestly, I'm going to go with the 49ers, of course. That one seems like a pretty easy one, but what I always say is don't forget that this is a division game. This isn't, Washington versus San Francisco, New York versus San Francisco. No, this is an interdivision game. So this is what are they? The NFC West, I believe. Seahawks Niners. These games, especially in the playoffs, they go crazy. I mean, y'all remember back in the Colin Kaepernick and Legion of Boom days how crazy those games were. So I would not count the Seahawks out by any means, but I mean, at the end of the day, these 49ers are definitely a tough team. They're not going to be ones you want to really mess with. They're counting out. They're on their third quarterback. This guy's Mr. Irrelevant of the most recent draft, and he's looked pretty good over the past few weeks. And I don't think he's lost. Yeah, they haven't lost. I think they're like on a 10-win streak, which is insane. And that just shows you how strong this team is. That other teams lose their quarterback. For example, no shade, but Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts goes out and they lose those 2 games. He doesn't play, and I mean, one, that shows the significance of Hurts' impact, and two, it just shows you, like I said, how strong this 49ers team is, because not only did they lose their starter, they lost the second string, who's all could be starter on most other teams, and they're on the third, and it's like nothing's missing. If anything, I feel like the offense is running pretty smooth. They're not, overcomplicating their game. It's we're gonna run the ball at you, we're gonna throw some screens, we're gonna let our playmakers make plays and try and stop us, kind of thing. But yeah, so I'm gonna go 49ers. I don't think it'll be a high scoring game, honestly. I think Gino and Brock Purdy have a lot to play for. Gino, is on a 1 or 2 year deal, I think. So he's gonna want to come out and prove his worth. Brock Purdy, of course, he knows that he's at a disadvantage. 49ers gave the load for Trey Lance. They still re-signed Jimmy G. Jimmy G's probably gonna walk. So I mean, his biggest competition is gonna be Lance. But at the end of the day, when you invest that much in a quarterback, a lot of teams are just gonna want to stick with that guy. Even if Purdy is producing, we've seen it happen before where the backup does really good, but they're like, you know what, we still think this is our guy. We're gonna go with it, and so I think Brock didn't want to show up. I'm going to say 24-17 49ers. Again, nothing crazy. Pretty decent scoring game. I think Gino's going to come out. He might have a turnover or two. He got a little sloppy during that Rams game when they needed to win. Uh, Came down to overtime. They missed a field goal. Things happen, but he came out and did his thing this year, so definitely very happy for Geno Smith. Well, I said Niners 24-17. Next, we're going Chargers Jags. 10-7 Chargers versus the 9-8 Jags. The Jags have fought their butt off this year. I think they're, let me see what they're at. I think 6-win streak, if I'm not mistaken, 5-win streak. So I think we were 2-8 at one point, 2-6, something really bad to start the year, and they came back and won the division. Bear in mind, it is a very weak division, so wasn't that hard. But I mean, nonetheless, you can't discredit what the Jags did this season. They came out and did their thing. The Chargers, a lot of controversy this past week. Brandon Staley, I'm not a fan of him by any means. I think he's definitely holding the Chargers back. He wins, but he does a lot of things that, like last year, he called the timeout in that last Week 18 game versus Oakland, or Vegas at the time, and it backfired on him. Of course, like the Raiders came out and said like, "Oh, we didn't do it because he called the timeout," but everybody knows they did it because he called the timeout. So I'm not a big fan of Brandon Staley by any means. This team is too talented to be where they are. 10-7 is not a bad record by any means, but he played the starters the entire game against the Broncos Week 18, knowing he has two of the most injury-prone receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who are, when they're in, they're ballers. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've always respected their game, but when you're playing in a game that has no significant meaning, he came out with the interview saying like, "Oh, well, we didn't have time to decide who we wanted to play and not play. Like, you're limited with so many players, blah blah blah." And I get it, I really do. But know your roster. If you know Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, I mean, look, they missed like so many games this year. I'm not too sure on the exact number, but I know for a good while, like, Herbert's best receiver was Jordan Palmer, who had almost no experience. Like, he was throwing to nobodies, and so you think like, hey, we want these guys to be in for the playoffs. Maybe let's pull Keenan. Let's pull Mike Williams, who we know are injury prone, that we need to make a run. And no, you leave him in the whole game, and Mike Williams gets a back injury. God forbid he misses the game with the back injury, but I mean, there's a chance he's out. I haven't seen any updates on it. Hopefully he plays, but I'm really not too sure. So like I said, I'm not a fan of his play calling, and honestly, Doug Peterson is a very experienced coach. I Experience is always kind of an iffy thing for me because you can have all the experience in the world, but if you have a young, hungry team who wants to win, they're gonna go out and try to win, bro. And so, I think the Jags are honestly gonna outcoach the Chargers. Talent wise, I give it to the Chargers, of course, but the Jags offense, if they can get going and Trevor Lawrence can stay consistent, they're pretty scary. They have Kirk, they have Jones, I think they have two Joneses, if I'm not mistaken. Evan Ingram is kind of making a career resurgence. ETN's balling out. I want to say the Jaguars win this game, man. As much as you want to go with the Chargers, as much as you believe the Chargers should win, as long as Brandon Staley's in charge, I just don't see it happening. There's just something about him, like, he's not a loser. I'll never say he's a loser, but I just don't think he's a winner. Like, he can win regular season games, but there's almost been no playoff success. Herbert's going to be going into his fourth year, and the team is there. Like, they have an extremely talented roster, offensively and defense. Like, they have one of the best safeties in the NFL. Khalil Mack's still out there grinding. They had J.C. Jackson, who fell to an ACL injury earlier in the year, but I don't know, man. 10-7 isn't disappointing, but you just want to see way more from this team, and I just haven't seen it this year, especially with that loss to Denver. If you're going to play your starters, you at least want to beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. Yes, Denver's very talented. Yes, they're predicted to be a Super Bowl favorite, but overall, that team sucked this year. Very big underperformance, and that shouldn't have been a game you lose if you don't pull your starters week 18. So I'm going to go Jaguars. Honestly, I think this is going to be like one of those 17-13 games, like very low scoring. I don't see a shootout happening. As much as we love to see one, it's not there for me. So yeah, we're going to go Jaguars, 17-13. Dolphins Bills, very big game. We saw how, of course, everything that happened with Hamlin a few weeks ago. So the Bills are going to be running off emotions. They didn't play too well this past game against the Patriots. They didn't play as well as you think they would, but of course you can't really put too much pressure on them, too much blame on them. Even with Hamlin recovering, there's still that feeling you have, like, you want to go out and ball for him, but, it's a lot, like, it's trauma for a lot of these guys. So they didn't play too well. They had some major kick returns in the game that, allowed them to go up, and then by that point, the Patriots and Mac Jones just kind of fell apart. Mac Jones honestly had a career game. You look at his stats, you're like, he had 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. How's that a career game? Before the interceptions, when it started getting sloppy, he was balling out, man. Like, he was tossing touchdowns. He was making the reads. Like, but if the Bills didn't have those kick returns, like, they would have been down a substantial amount. That's gave them 14 points. They ended up blowing the game out of the water at the end. So looking at final score, you're like, what do you mean? Like, the Bills blew out the Patriots. I'm like, well, if you watch the game, it was a lot closer than it really was. Those kick returns were significant. Obviously, you can't say if they didn't happen because they did happen. And, not to discredit them, but the Bills did not play as good as you'd hope so. But again, can't blame them. And the big thing for the Dolphins is Tua. This team was 8-3 at one point, if I'm not mistaken. 8-3, 8-4. Pretty substantial record. I think they even led the division for a bit. And then, Tua's injuries happened. He had the back injury. He had the concussion. I think he's already at 2 concussions this year. So, how healthy can a guy who has to constantly make reads, quick throws, and all that, how healthy can he be and how ready can he be coming into the playoffs? Yes, he's had 2 weeks off, but, concussions are no joke. Like, those things really impact a player in the long run. We've seen greats retire because of concussion injuries, biggest one being like Luke Kuechly and Andrew Luck a few years ago. Like, those dudes were peak of their career, all pros, Pro Bowls, deep playoff runs, and the concussions took them out. And of course you want to go as long as you can, but you also want to make sure you want to make the right decision when it comes. I know as of today he wasn't practicing yet. He wasn't cleared for non-contact throwing, so it'll be a big game time decision. Obviously, if Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater starts that game, I think it's going to be a pretty substantial blowout by the Bills. Right now, the spread, according to ESPN, is a 10-5 or 10.5 Bills. It's going to be a really tough game for the Dolphins. If Tua comes back, he might come back and do his thing, but he's been out for a few weeks. Isn't the most healthiest, and it'll be hard for him to clear any rust off that he's occurred, or that he's, the rust is built up over the past few weeks, so it'll be hard for him to come out slinging when the Bills have been, they've been playing every week. They've been looking pretty good every week. Even if they have down weeks, they're still pretty good. They're one of the best teams in football, injured or not. So I'm going to go with the Bills here, assuming, let's say, Tua does play, but he's not able to shake off that rust. I'm going to say I mean, you might be looking at something like 31-14, like something pretty substantial. Like it'll be a hard game to keep close. Maybe Tua proves all of us wrong and he's able to come out slinging. But like I said, if Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater plays, just it might not even be a game worth watching. And that's just my opinion. If you want to watch that, go for it. It's playoff football. I don't blame you, but it can get ugly really quick depending who starts that game. Next, we have the Vikings and Giants 3:30 on Sunday. So they played earlier in the year. What was the final score to that one? 27-24, and I want to say the Vikings had a pretty nice comeback. If I'm not, well, they were never down too significant. It was, let's see, yeah, 10-0. Vikings were up. The Giants kind of came back fighting, and then the Vikings took the lead. Last second field goal by Greg Joseph. So pretty good game. I think it's a pretty fair matchup. The Vikings are a very odd team this year. Like they have one of the best, if not the best receiver in football right now. Kirk Cousins has been playing at a pretty good level. You never want to give him too much credit because the second you do, he'll come back and break your heart. But I mean, it's fair. Like 12-3 is the, or no, that's what that game was at the time. 13-4 versus 9-7-1. Obviously, looking at the record, Minnesota has a significant amount more than wins, just 6 more wins pretty much. But I think it's a pretty even matchup. I think that's one of the most even matchups of this playoff series. The Vikings are just such a hit and miss team, like though they came back against the Colts, who weren't a great team. I mean, they went down by like 30 something to the Colts, but then they came back and scored those 30 something right back and won that game. But then there's also been games where like you see that grit and you see that fight in them, but then there's the games like the Dallas game. They got absolutely obliterated. I think it was 40-3 if I'm not mistaken. And so it's just so hard to know what Minnesota team you're going to get, more specifically like what Kirk Cousins are you going to get? Are you going to get early morning Kirk Cousins who's going to come out and throw for 300 yards? Or are you going to get primetime Kirk Cousins who just forgets how to play football? He's back in his Washington Redskin days and he's struggling and he's inconsistent. And it's a tough one, man. But I think it'll be a pretty decent matchup. Minnesota looks like they're favored by 3. I could see Minnesota pulling it out, honestly. I do believe they're a way better football team than the Giants. Minnesota's defense has given them some issues. Kirk Cousins and the offense's consistency has given them some issues, but they're coming off a decent win against the Bears. It's the Bears, but it's still a division win. They're feeling hyped. They're feeling good. I'm going to go 24-17 here. I really don't think any of these games are going to be high scoring. Maybe the Bills kind of try to, put the beat down on the Dolphins, but besides that, I think most of these games are going to be fairly low scoring. But yeah, 24-17 Minnesota. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals. I'm tired of the Ravens. I'm tired of hearing about the Ravens. They're just complaining, blah, blah, blah. They got cheated. Of course, I don't know. That whole Hamlin situation, like, changed a lot of things. But it seemed like the Ravens were the most upset fan base. But I really don't think they should have been. If Lamar was going to play and they had a chance to win the division, I understand being pissed off. But Lamar didn't play week 18. Maybe they could have rushed him back, but I don't know. I just, this team's another one, like, they win, but the playoff success has not been there. I'm not one to talk being a Cowboys fan, of course, but, like, this team, the consistency is like they blew that early lead to the Dolphins. They blew a lead to the Bills early in the season. Like, they've had a lot of inconsistent wins. When Lamar's in, they're playing, but, I mean, they're not passing. Like, I don't feel like Lamar's developed as a passer over the last few years. Like, compared to his MVP season, like, he's never really passed, like, more than 3,300 yards in his career, if I'm not mistaken. And a big part of it comes to the weapons he has and the way the Ravens play. So, like, obviously their offense is working enough to get them, to be able to compete in these games. But Lamar hasn't played in, 5-6 weeks already. It's going to be hard to shake off that rust against a angry Bengals team, because if anybody got cheated with the whole situation that happened with Hamlin, of course, with the rescheduling or the not rescheduling of the game and the way they just kind of broke the scenarios out, it'd be the Bengals. They kind of lost the opportunity to win the conference for a chance at the number 1 seed. So I understand they're angry, they're upset. It's a very unfortunate situation. We're all glad to see Hamlin's doing better, but at the end of the day, if anybody should be pissed, it's the damn Bengals. And, the Ravens are going to be gifted the opportunity for a coin flip, even though the Bengals finished the season with 2 more wins to them. I mean, of course, if the Bengals would have lost and the Ravens won, they would have technically had the same record at 11 wins. The Ravens would have had an additional loss just because of the way the Bengals played one less game. But in all honesty, I don't think the Ravens would have had a shot to win the division, even if the Hamlin situation didn't happen. I think these Bengals are pissed off. They're going to come back and they're going to run through the AFC. I don't see the Ravens offense doing anything. They rarely do. I don't have they even won a playoff game. They might have won a playoff game against like one of the lower teams in the wild card in the past few years, but I really can't recall it. I can't recall a good Lamar Jackson playoff game. And I like Lamar Jackson, don't get me wrong. I'm not trashing him. I just think he's been the same passer he's been for the few couple years already, and it's not there. I'm gonna go Bengals. I think this one kind of might be a bit of a blowout. Not necessarily a blowout, but I'm thinking like 24-10. I just can't see the Ravens offense picking up. I mean, they lost Dobbins. I don't know if he's playing again this week, but yeah, no, I don't think this is gonna be a good game. Cincinnati's favored by 6.5. I think it's gonna be a lot bigger lead. Like I said, 24-10 Cincinnati. Then we're on to the last game, Cowboys versus Buccaneers. Where to even start with this one? Obviously, Week 18, Cowboys had a small chance to get the number 1 seed, or at least the number 2 seed, depending on if San Francisco won and Philadelphia lost. If Philly lost and Dallas won, that could give them 1 or 2, depending if San Francisco won. If San Francisco won and Philly lost, San Francisco was 1, Dallas 2, they played the 7th seed. That didn't happen. Philly won with ease against all the Giants backups. San Francisco won with ease against the Cardinals, who were on like their 3rd or 4th quarterback already. So, it wasn't realistic, but you would have still liked to see Dallas play a good game Week 18 with all their starters, which they didn't. And they looked like trash. It was a very bad game. It was a division game, and I always tell people, at the end of the day, we'd say, oh, this guy sucks, this team sucks, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, you got to remember, these people are some of the best athletes in the world, regardless if they're on a 13-win team or a 2-win team. If you get someone from a 2-win team, I'm pretty sure they would destroy any, casual human being on the football field. Not even a question. Like, these guys are still professional athletes. They're still some of the best in the world. And so, even when there's matchups like a 4-win team versus a 12-win team, that's why sometimes the 4-win team wins. Like, they may not be a better organization, but these players are still pretty damn good. And that's pretty much what happened here on Week 18 with Dallas and Washington. Like, Dallas is obviously the better organization. They have a lot more talent, but you can't take anything away from that Washington team. Like, they've shown they can win big games. They beat Philadelphia with the healthy Eagles team, or with the healthy team, earlier in the season, and they did it to Dallas. So, like, the loss wasn't surprising. It was just the fashion of the loss. Like, this wasn't your good old NFC East matchup where it's like, 24-21 with, 2 minutes left and somebody takes the lead at the last second kind of thing. Like, no. This was just a straight up beat down by Washington to Dallas, and Dallas just looked like they didn't want to be out there. They played sloppy. They played anything but good football. Like, Dak Prescott had the pick 6. He had a lot of bad throws. There's a lot of drops. I think Pollard had like 50 rushing yards. I don't even think Zeke. It was just a really ugly game. Like, there was nothing good in that game to go off of. Sam Howell, who'd never started a damn game before, he went for 11, 19, 169 yards. That's not terrible for a first game. Like, sometimes it takes quarterbacks 3-4 weeks before they throw even a touchdown in a game. This guy did it in the first one. Like, yeah, he had a pick, but what's the pick matter when your team loses by 20 points to pretty much a nobody squad right now? Like, the Washington wasn't really playing for anything. Like, they got eliminated last week. They were just really going in to spoil any hopes the Dallas Cowboys had, because, like I said, if certain games have been won or lost by other teams in the NFC, Dallas had a shot. And not only did Washington play spoiler to any chance they had, they embarrassed them. Like, this was a nationally televised game at 3:25, and it was disgusting. Buccaneers lost to the Falcons, but, I mean, Brady left halfway through the second quarter once he broke his own record for the most completions in a season. So, this matchup, it's hard, man. Dallas got whipped by Buccaneers week 1. Tampa looks super hot. I mean, nobody expected them to finish with the 8-9 record. Is that what they finished at? 8-9 or 9-8? 8-9 record and make the playoffs. It's a weak division. Obviously, we expected them to win a division, but not in that fashion where it had to come down to week 17 between the Panthers and the Buccaneers. Like, nobody expected that to happen. But at the end of the day, it's Tom Brady. He's heating up. Him and Mike Evans found the chemistry week 17. We all saw it. Panthers had a pretty decent lead. I think it was like 10-0, and then Mike Evans and Brady just 3 touchdowns and like 200 yards. Like, Mike Evans had a career game. Brady found his connection, and I just think it happened at the perfect time for Tampa Bay, but at the wrong time for Dallas. Nobody's expecting Dallas to lose this game, but as a Cowboys fan, you've learned not to fall into that narrative. Like, if Dallas is supposed to blow somebody out, that game is going to come down to the last 15 seconds, and it's going to be like 33-30, something crazy. Like, it's going to be a shootout, and somebody's going to win at the last second. And then when they're not supposed to win the games, they come out, fight their asses off, and they put up a pretty damn good game. Dallas is favored by 3, which is crazy considering they're playing a team with 5 less wins. But it's just how much benefit of the doubt can you give the Cowboys after what they showed us Week 18 versus what Tampa Bay has been showing us the past few weeks? Tampa Bay's heating up. Dallas ran into a brick wall on Sunday. I'm going to go as unbiased as I can. I do genuinely believe Dallas can win this game, despite what happened last week, despite what happened Week 1 against Tampa Bay. But I don't think it'll be pretty. I think this is going to be an ugly game. I think the defense is going to come out and, they're going to ruffle Tom Brady's feathers. But I think Dallas is going to struggle. I don't see this being a high-scoring game. I think maybe the highest this game goes is like 21-17. As much as we love to see a shootout between these two teams, it's probably not going to happen. Like, the Dallas defense is really good. If the offense could run the damn ball, they'd be even better. I say keep the ball to Prescott's hand as much as you can. I love Dak. I've always supported Dak, but this year just isn't his year. Maybe he heats up in the playoffs, but you would have liked to see him be a little more calm and collected against, one of the worst teams in the NFL. Washington isn't garbage by any means. They finished 8-1, but they should have handled that game like it was nothing. Like, this should have been a playoff warm-up. They should have won. They should have been chilling for next week. Come back and it's like, all right, we won the past few weeks. Let's go in. Let's get it. But no. Now they're the center of the media right now. Everybody's talking about, should the Cowboys panic? How much do we blame Prescott? What is this team doing? And as they should be. Like, they should not be in this position. They did it to themselves, but it is what it is. So, like I said, ugly game. Don't expect the offense to be from both of these teams to come out slinging. I'm going to go Dallas 21-17. And with that, that is the last game. I know this video went a little longer than probably would have. Kind of talked a lot of kind of filler conversation. But if you stuck around and listened, really appreciate it. If you have any, playoff things, or if you have your own guesses, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Of course, I'd like to see what other people think. If you agree with my picks, go ahead and let me know. If you don't, I'm always up for debate. So thank you guys for listening. Have a great day.